and welcome to another episode of Where'd It Come From? This one's about suits. Enjoy. Hey, so let's talk about the shirt first of all. Now, the dress shirt itself is not all that fantastic. You can put like little cufflinks in the cuffs, obviously, but there's really not a whole lot to do with it other than, button your collars, things like that. Now, in older sorts of suits, and even some of the, formal suit wear, tuxedos, if you will, collars stand out, they're stiffer, and you bend it over sometimes you don't. Now, that's just a different style. It's a detached collar, if you will. I'm going to be mainly focusing on the Oxford collar and things like that, because that's what is typically worn to most outings, business meetings, things like that, because the tuxedo is really more for formal evening wear, which is a bit different than what I'm talking about. So, anyway, moving on. Okay, so the second part would be the tie. Obviously, everybody knows that. Really, you put your shirt on first because it's like the easiest thing to put on. The history of the tie is what I was really interested in, and why I actually made this video, because it was really, I was like, where did it come from? Really fascinating. So, the actual start of the tie began in the 30 Years' War with Croatia and Croatian militant Marines and like their frontier. I guess they weren't technically called Marines, but and they were getting dressed for battle really fast. And so what they did is they wrapped cloth around themselves to just kind of stand out. That's their what would we call it, attire, uniform sort of thing. And the French people kind of saw that, and they kind of brought that into society. They're like, that's really interesting, how can we incorporate this? So what they did is, they began to tie different sorts of scarves and even a few just simple, interesting knots. And girls would do it, guys would do it. It was a pretty common thing to do. And it became very popular, like most things that happen in France become very popular in Britain. And British people took it and they went with it. Now, at this time, they weren't formally called ties. They were called cravats. Around the 1800s, certain individuals began writing, manuals on etiquette, because these became formal dining wear and everyday sorts of wear. And now that we're talking about the almost Elizabethan, that time period, where they would wrap them around the neck several times, tie them in a giant bow up here. That's when they'd have the stiff detached collar that would go up here. You typically see that in any, English movie. It's in Sleepy Hollow, which is, I think, American, but that time period. Sleepy Hollow, you got the Pride and Prejudice, you've got all sorts of Jane Austen, just things of that time period, wore things like that, because it was the etiquette, it was what was in, it was very fashionable, very professional, very proper, things like that. But people began writing books about it, and one of the first people to associate the cravat called it, how to tie a cravat. Nobody ever really associated the two words together quite like that, and so the name tie stuck, and that's kind of where it went from to the modern adaptation. Now, World War I rolled around, and then we had the Industrial Revolution, and you had to go to work and look pretty nice, because everybody was still wearing things around their neck. It's been like that for forever. If you look good, you have to wear something around your neck. It's some sort of weird human thing that's just been passed down. It looks classy, it looks good, it looks, things like that. So, what they did is they didn't want the cumbersome, giant cravat-looking things. So, inventors, I suppose, or fashion designers of the early 20s decided that they would take a piece of simple cloth like this and tie it around a man's neck in a very easy-to-tie tie. You could do Windsor, there's all sorts of different kinds. And he would just, wear that to work, and it worked, and, he could tuck it into his pants so it didn't get caught in the machine or anything. And it looked very nice, it was very easy to tie, it did not take long to do in the morning, which was the whole point, because you had to get to work, because, you had to work these hours. That was just the Industrial Revolution, around that time period, things like that. So, that is the actual origin of the tie that we have today. And moving on to the next part, which is the vest. Now, the vest actually has a specific date and time where it began, and that was with King Charles II in England. He introduced it as a correct dress for the restoration of the British monarchy. The anti-sentiments of the French people during the, whole French Revolution made it so that it kind of went away from that formal style and became much tighter, much less ornate. I mean, the early ones were very just poofy and very big, but they became very simple, very nice, it was almost an accent to the suit instead of maybe a major part. Finally, the whole suit is together with the suit jacket now. I mean, obviously you want the cuffs to be sticking out just a bit, and it looks very nice. Well, the sorts of different cuts, there's so many different kinds, and there's so many different fabrics. But the jacket has the front buttons right here, and you've got the buttons on here that actually do nothing. They used to do something, they used to hold it too, but they don't anymore. Now, the interesting thing about the suit is that the little pockets, small pockets right there, they originally were optional. They were for sport type of suits people would wear when they were riding. This was to hold things, make it easier to ride, so you didn't have so many things in these pockets, so they weren't bouncing around, or in your pants pockets you could put your watches and things like that. They became much more popular. Now this, originally, this little doohickey thing, where the flowers would go, or I suppose your neckerchief usually, that was always sort of just an option. People would put them in here and they got tired of pulling them out, so they put them on the outside and they became eventually decorative, but originally they weren't at all. As far as the pants go, they were originally, of course, supposed to match this, so it looked good. I mean, that's human nature to match something, I mean, or make a, all black. So there is actually etiquette to wearing ties. Now, one of them is the fact that your tie should never be the same color as your shirt, and it should, I mean, if you're going for formal, it should always be the same color as your jacket. So if I had a gray suit, I should wear a gray tie and some other colored shirt. I can wear usually whatever color shirt I want, but if you're going for strictly formal wear, everyone knows it's black and white. Now, the origins of that are what I'm most interested in. Now, as far as the whole history of the black tie, white shirt, black, overcoat, things like that, it was originally designed for the upper class. They wore it every night, to dinner, at home, things like that. They were very formal, very, very formal, and it was strictly for them. Actually, the evolution of the black tie for men came from the fact that only men who were stag or without a woman at a party would wear it, usually with only other stag men. So it was just black, and normally if a man had a woman with him, he would match her. But it became the fact that black became very, very fashionable, and still is to this day, and so people stuck with the whole idea that we should keep black, and the woman matches with the black dress. So that's really the whole history of a suit as far as that goes. I mean, there's certain little details that I'm sure I missed that are really not all that important. I mean, there's different kinds of tie. They didn't go into different sorts of formal wear suits. I didn't go into tails, things like that. Because I was really going more for the normal suit instead of a tuxedo sort of thing. Because tuxedos are a whole different breed. I mean, those became more of a completely formal thing in America that just was specifically for certain things like weddings, prom, business things, business balls, galas, things like that. Only for when you had to dress up completely formal. They used to be semi-formal, now they are completely formal, and you are out of place if you wear one any other time than an extremely formal event. So, alright, hope you enjoyed it. Please subscribe. I love you forever, and goodbye.